The principle to focus and to flow. If we look at the sun and the earth, we realize a basic and fundamental law of function which we as human beings can learn from, and which is of utmost help in the right movement of life. The sun, through light, gives life to the earth. The sun is fixed in its position, and it has to be. Otherwise, the earth and all the other planets of our solar system could not continue in their rhythmic, harmonious orbit. There would be chaos, upheaval, and great damage. The earth, on the other hand, is constantly moving in repetitive cycles around the sun. Movement allows for change and expression, which has a beginning, middle, and end. In other words, the phenomenon of time is created by the Earth's balanced and harmonious cyclic rhythms. Both are necessary for life. The Earth has all the potential for life, but without the light from the fixed source, there would be no life. In the same way, the sun has the power to give life, but if the moving earth did not hold the potential, even with light, there would be no manifestation of life. In certain situations and moments, we need focus, a concentration of thought, will, and understanding. These three need to be together in one focused point if we are to reach depth and newness. But if we become over-focused, then gradually rigidity and pressure set in. This leads to an imbalance that makes us lose creativity and openness for a new vision. What we find in focus needs at one point to flow naturally, appropriately, and systematically into our life. In focus, we find the vision, the inspiration, the understanding, and in the flow, we find the expression, the experimentation, the experience. And just as over-focus becomes negative, so does overflowing. When there is overflow, we get lost in a flood of overthinking, overspeaking, and overdoing. Then there's no direction that guides the expression. Things become vague and fragile. At such a point, we need to recognize that it is time for focus, time to go inside, time to be silent. According to necessity, the human being needs to move between focus and flow, and only one's discernment can know when and how to do this. Everything has its time.
I was just saying sorry to all our Facebook family. Om Shanti. It's very glad to see everyone today. I was just sharing that it's been quite active today, and for the past few days I've been getting up my usual time, 3:30 in the morning, and just sitting in solitude and silence and catching thoughts, catching what the divine has for my next assignment. What is it that I might be missing? Where am I going with my life? At the early morning hours as well, I can feel everyone more because there aren't a lot of disturbances at that time. So I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but when you wake up early in the morning and you're just having one of your happy morning days and you're up an hour or two earlier than you normally are, and all of a sudden somebody comes in your intellect and you start to think of that person and you wonder, I wonder if they're okay. You ever get those feelings? Right. So sometimes we can pick up the thoughts. Just yesterday, I was just reflecting through the window, and since I've been back from India, my abilities have gotten very, 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 very sharp. And yesterday I was remembering a friend of ours, Janie Jeffers, a lot, and I go, I have to call her, I have to call Janie. And it might have been half an hour later, I checked my email, and at the time that I was remembering Janie, she had called me. She had emailed that she had had a fall and had sprained parts of her foot. And I was connecting again to that whole notion that when your mind is clear and your friends are in need, they will call your name in their minds as if they're reaching out to you. And from your mind, you will respond and send your blessings and your good wishes to them. And so one of the benefits of meditation is also that. There's an article that we're going to forward to you from NIH about the enormous benefits of meditation, and that they claim that there's been an upsurge in meditation practices. Whether it's children, families, professionals, senior citizens, everyone is now beginning to realize, I need to be still. I just need to be still. I just want to be still. Because there's something very powerful in the stillness. In the stillness, the shift is happening. The shift from vices, algae, into virtues. Can you imagine? All I had to do was just to be still, to get out of my way and let Baba's light, let God's light come in and do the work. But we're so busy in trying to do it ourselves that it's taking a longer time. So before I move on any further, are there any thoughts that you'd like to share? Anything that you'd like to offer to me today as we move into our other session? For those who weren't able to attend the Monday afternoon session, we will stay back for just half an hour to catch up if you'd like. But pretty much I'm pretty certain I'll be tying in what I shared on Monday here too. Any questions, any feelings, any realizations, any thoughts, anything magical has been happening? Have you felt a little bit calmer? Have you felt a little bit more in charge of your life? Have you felt a little bit more secure? Have you been feeling like you're looking at things with a little bit different vision, like you're looking at the scenes in your life a little bit differently? Because those are some of the benefits of the Raj Yoga meditation course. If whilst you're sitting here really listening to the sessions, and if I'm listening with compassion and I'm listening with sincerity, whatever it is that the divine has to get through to me, He will touch your heart as you're hearing these ideas. It's not me. It's something that the Divine wants you to hear, and He will touch your heart as He's conveying the message. You know, many people in mystical days, they will talk about the prophets, the seers, the sages, the saints, and we will always share with you that our inspiration and our guidance comes from the Supreme. And it took me a little bit of a while to really understand what that meant. Because there are times that we don't feel we can be that fortunate enough to be so loved so deeply by Source. We know it intellectually. We believe that there's an energy existing outside of me or beyond me. We believe it, but do we feel it? Have you ever had a really seriously happy period in your life? And it just didn't matter what anyone said or did? And you might just say, oh, it's because I just had my first child. Or you might have said, I just got married. Or you might have said, oh, I just got into college. Or you might have said, oh, I just got to go on a vacation. I'm going to so-and-so. Or you might have said, oh my gosh, my best friend just found the person of her dreams. Or, you know, those happy periods. Remember those happy periods? No matter what happened, you were just okay. When anyone would come and give you bad news, you're like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear. Can I help? And even if someone did something that you felt was offensive towards you, it's just like, oh, leave him alone. You know what he's like anyway. What's he going to do? You can see when your stage is really quite strong, things fall off of your back much easier. And when we start to get a little bit vulnerable, we're not saying that vulnerability is a weakness, but when we're vulnerable without wisdom, we can feel very, very hurt. You know, like very, very shattered. And then that's when we're feeling like, I'm not strong enough. I just wish I was strong enough to deal with this. So far, what I've seen historically is that every living person on the planet who has matured through life and has gone through what they think is the most horrifying experience they've ever been through, everyone has survived it. Isn't that amazing? However difficult the situations were for you, you still survived it.
Yeah, I can survive. I feel that, that I'm trying to do, I am happy that I'm trying to do, but I'm not getting, that.
Mm.
I think, oh, I'm on the way. I will get one day to that point.
Good, good. So we'll try to see if we can get you to the experience. One of the most important aspects about meditation is, 1, stop watching other people. 2, don't have any expectations. 3, there's no such thing as a destination. It's just where you are. How do you want to feel right now? How do you want to feel? You see, that even has to be clear. And so if even I don't even know how I want to feel, then I can't even direct myself with where to go. What I'd like to do is to take us on a little...
I took a class in my country 7 years ago.
Yeah.
But really, I want to Raj Yoga, how to... I cannot go on that point.
You can't just
How
get...
to-
Okay. So what I'd like you to do is not think about the point. Remember, one of the things I've emphasized in the class is not think about the point, think about the qualities. Remember? I keep focusing on the qualities. The love, the peace, the purity, the truth, or the joy, or the opposite to that. I want to take you a little bit to the first lesson because of what you've just shared. In our first lesson, we spoke about soul, correct? All right. And we talked about the algae, which we are very clear on right now. And we talked about the opposite energies to algae: peace, purity, joy, love, and truth. Truth, you can look at truth in the form of wisdom. All right? So whenever there is wisdom, there is no room for ego. And that's why our society right now on a global level, we're lacking wisdom. So what we're enduring more from one another is a lot of ego. So as a result of the ego, there's a lot of sensitivity, there's a lot of insults, there's a lot of criticizing, there's a lot of judgment. And those things are very painful on the soul because we're so attached to our identities. And that's what ego is, an attachment to a very limited identity. All right. What if you knew that there is a way that the soul functioned? And in Raj Yoga, we've spoken about 3 aspects of the soul. There's a mind that thinks. There's an intellect that chooses. And there is a recording that takes place, sanskars. So, thoughts, choice, recording. Sit with that for a little bit. Your mind houses all of your thoughts. So that means as you're sitting here, you're sitting in a vortex, in a consciousness of thoughts that are already happening in you. You're not even creating the thoughts are just sitting in you. The thoughts are a result of your recordings, and it's all cyclical. So whatever recordings you are carrying in the soul, remember the iceberg metaphor, where right underneath the iceberg is really the base of many of our feelings. So if underneath the iceberg, at the base of the iceberg, the deepest part of the soul, which they call the subconscious, if recorded in that area is such depths of energy and vibrations that they are naturally just sending rays of thoughts to my mind. Now, if my sanskaras that are recorded in me are of truth and falsehood, light or shadow, freedom or bondage, happiness or sorrow, whatever's recorded in the base of my sanskaras, they're going to influence the way my thoughts percolate in my mind on its own. On its own. So that means as a soul, you are walking around with so much in you as a living being. Who put it there? We'll talk a little bit about that today too. But the most important thing is that as a living energy, as spirit, as light, as the metaphysical, as the soul, as the energy, there are experiences that you are carrying in you. And it's been recorded. And based on the experiences that you have been feeling, known to you or unknown to you, they're automatically sending thoughts to your mind. Your thoughts create feelings. And that's why it's very important for you to always ask yourself, what do I feel? Can you try to do that? I want you to keep asking yourself this question, how do I feel? Whenever you ask that self the question, you're digging into you. So whenever you ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? If you feel, I feel nothing, it means there's a collision between your truth and your illusion. If you say, I feel frustrated, anxious, then you know that's leading the way. If you say, I am so inspired, I cannot wait when I'm going to get out of the course tonight, it's your better self that's sending these thoughts to your mind and are giving you the feelings. Are you with me? Do you understand how powerful this is to figure yourself out? So whenever you ask yourself how you're feeling, you then can determine if it's feeding any one of these sanskaras, then this is what I use. The power of the intellect to choose. Do I want to sustain that feeling, or do I want to change it? Because what the intellect represents in the soul is your willpower. It represents your awareness. Your intellect represents your interpretation of how you see your life, situations, circumstances. Your intellect is your filter. Your intellect is your doer. It's what gives you the capacity to understand something, or just say, I don't understand you one bit. And that is because the less amount of wisdom that the intellect has, the more probability it will surrender to whatever thoughts the mind send to the soul. So if my sanskars of algae keep acting up and it keeps sending a thought that's giving me a feeling of like melancholy, or I feel indecisive, or I feel anxious, or I feel frustrated, or I feel jealous, or I feel critical. And if I don't have enough wisdom about who I am, where I come from, who I belong to, and what time of history I am standing in, then that sanskar of algae will keep reinforcing and validating to me, you know, you're just this, right? So why, as souls, we need to keep receiving information and wisdom and knowledge to keep giving me more insight? That's why I shared with you a few times before, please begin to listen to things that will inspire you, things that make you think a little bit higher, things that challenge you to take your life one step further. Why I keep telling you, turn off the negativity, turn yourself away from the negative stuff, stop getting so acclimated to it. Begin to focus on what can move your goals forward, move your love forward, move your peace forward, move your purity forward. How can I be more of service in this world? So when your intellect, which is your wisdom, that part of you that just has the ability to dissect, to discern, this is where your discernment comes from. People who are very good at discerning are intelligent, and I'm not talking about books. There's a lot of people with common sense intelligence, and you can't fool them easily. So you don't have to have a PhD to be coined intelligent. You just have to have a kind of intellect that knows how to choose what is pure, what is clean, what is right. And you don't need a PhD for that. I did a project many, many years ago, and I had to work with all the ambassadors in this area. And I remembered speaking to one ambassador. I always remember him. He tickled me to amazing humor. And he said, Sister Jenna, I really want to participate in your Envisions a City, a World of Values, but I'm working on my PhD and I just don't have the time. And I told the ambassador, with all due respect, what the world doesn't need is another PhD. And we laughed so hard. He goes, you know what? You've got me thinking. You know, it was just so funny. You just had to have been there, because we really had a moment, you know, and we just laughed so hard. But the point that I'm making is that whatever you're feeding into your consciousness, whatever you're feeding into your filter, whatever you're putting into your ability to make a choice, whatever information you are taking in, that information will give you the ability to choose if you wish to feed this. Do you wish to continue feeding those thoughts that are swimming in and out of your mind? Or do you need to feed this? these thoughts that are swimming in and out of your mind. Because where those thoughts are coming from is the force of the sanskaras. Now, in our Raj Yoga teachings, this is what helped me. Now, you can select for yourself. When souls come down from the soul world, remember we spoke about God's energy in that region of light where we all descend? It fascinates me to think that we would maybe only take one lifetime. Some of us might say out of some weird mystical thing, you would end up with two. But many of us say once we are born, then we die and we go back to heaven. And then as a little girl, I used to think about what about babies who only die, who only last for 2 days, a week? What if those who only survive for 15 years, 30 years? What about those who survive for 103, 110 years? It wasn't connecting the numbers. And then elders would tell me, well, it's God's will, it's God's will. Those are questions that we cannot answer. And I said, but everything in the universe has an answer. And even though I've never been to the sun, I'm quite convinced it's quite hot. Gosh, you guys had a hard day today, huh? So I'm just saying that we might not have complete proof of everything in our lives, but our common sense could just say, I suspect that's a really hot space. So do I have proof that the soul lives on and takes different births? For me, I do. For you, you have to determine that. If you've ever had deja vu, if you've ever met someone and felt like you knew them, even though it was the first time you've ever met them, if you've ever felt like, oh, I've met my soulmate, or if you've ever had a relationship with someone and it was just the worst nightmare of your life, and you have no idea how I came into contact with this person. To me, all of that is connected. There was a connection with the soul in a previous lifetime. It makes no sense you would walk into my world with all that drama. And all I said was hello, and that was it. So there's something connected there. So once I accepted that and I began to investigate it more, it started to give me a lot more inner freedom and clarity, but it also drew me closer to the acceptance of the behaviors of people in my life and how I was responding to situations with other people in my life. So imagine if you took 21 lives. Imagine the intensity of the recording. Imagine if you took 43 lives. Imagine the intensity of the sanskars recording in you as a vibration. Imagine if you took 84 lifetimes, which mystics say it's the most births a singular soul can take, and the least amount of births a soul can take is 1. The most it can take is 84. Please don't tell me to prove it. Brahma Baba has given us so much insight, and I accept them for now. I won't try to prove them to people because I still see that time still exists. So I wait for further confirmations of things. I've believed in things that people have told me which I had no backing if it was true or not, only to find out that it wasn't true. And I've lived my life based on that. That was it really true that we had to work for a living, get a white picket fence, a dog, work like a slave until 65 years and that's it? That was life? No. We're now learning to find things that we love, because it's in loving what we do will be our success. And success is now giving a completely different meaning. It's not just having the $1 million in the bank, even though that is good, but it's about the way you're feeling when you're doing what you're doing. If you feel happy and rewarded, that is success. So why I want to go back to your question, and thank you for asking the question. You see how you helped everybody? Is that inside of the soul, what you're saying is you are expecting to get a feeling, and you're thinking it's a destination. But in reality, all you have to do is to choose to select what kind of a thought do you want to feel? That's all you have to do. And the only thing that we have maybe against us or for us is if I choose to create the thought, I am a peaceful soul, and I'm feeling the force of a thought go, but you just got upset with that man just 5 minutes ago. There is no way you believe you are peaceful. So that thought is just confirming that there's just a lot of the investment of that anger energy. But it doesn't mean that's who I am. So when I'm in meditation, I'm aware, yes, I did get angry with him because I was in a state of forgetfulness of who I am. But right now, I'm aware of who I truly am. And I am peace. And that's all I'm asking you to remember. So that's the way you're dialoguing with yourself. You get it now? And once you do it like that, you are engaged in a meditation. And it's that simple. And that's how you start to, and I don't want to use the word control in a negative way, but that's when you really start to master your choices. Because you begin to realize it's beneficial for you to select the kinds of thoughts that are more inspirational for your life in this incarnation. Because if you wait for something magical to happen outside of you, or for somebody to change, or for anything else to be something else for you, it'll never happen. How many people have changed for you so far? Exactly. So that means the only person that has to change is going to be me, right? So you got that step now. So that means after this, you're going to have to keep following this because I'm going to be on your back now. All right. Okay, so any questions?
How long do you think it takes for you to get to this state of just
Natural flow of yourself. It depends on your level of sincerity. It depends on your honesty with yourself. It depends on the time in which the soul is in its birth or in its lifetime, in its journey. And by doing so, and again, can I tell you that I have no proof if we're going to get to 100% peace, purity, truth, love, and joy. But what I do have proof in, it does increase. And I do have proof. I just don't do the things I used to do, and I have no interest in doing it anymore. And I do have the living proof that when certain people do things to me, what used to affect me 10, 20 years ago, it's like, what you gonna do? So that begins to prove to me something energetically is rising because I'm not shaking inside as much as I used to. So will I get to it 100%? Will you get to it 100%? Let's see. The story is still unfolding. So I would much rather try to do that rather than think, oh, well, nobody has ever gotten there, so what am I doing? Let me go party. You know, so when you think like that, it doesn't help the spirit to get higher because it's not the kind of energy that we need. All right? Okay, can I erase? You want to take a picture? You're okay? All right. Was that clearer for you on the first lesson? It's interesting to think about the whole notion of having more than one lifetime, isn't it? I find it fascinating. You know, my father was a Hindu and my mother was Roman Catholic. And so she only believed in one lifetime, but he didn't. I mean, she didn't believe in more than one lifetime, but he did. So he believed in more than one lives and she didn't. But they both lived together. So it's like, what's the problem? So I think it's your recording. And the irony is, when I matured, I began to realize for me that I thought my father was a newer soul and my mother was a much older soul. Just because his life was just so easy and my mother's life was just so difficult. And newer souls have it easy. Older souls will go through a lot of stuff because they have to return to their truth. They have used a lot of their energy. So now it's time to restore the energy. And they do that by their connection to God, to Source. So I thought that was very fascinating. And I ask you to keep opening up your mind, to keep expanding your understanding of things in life, because there's a lot more to all of this than what meets the eye. And I can assure you we're not living even half of the life that we should live. We really aren't. So let's take a look at consciousness and look at consciousness in 4 places, in 4 parts. And I want you to imagine that you're here. And your here is called a diamond age, a diamond period in your life. It's also known as a confluence. It's your confluence age. It's your diamond age. It's your age of great transformation. It's your age of your awakening. This is when you are about to wake up, or this is your awakening. This is your period to do the really big awakening. You can feel it. There's a pressure coming in from the one part of the world that seems to be going in the downward spiral of consciousness and values and ethics. Can you feel it? Can you see like ethics and values are shifting tremendously on our planet? And then you're also very inspired to be around energies that you go, this person has a lot of morals, values. They're so character-based. They're so ethically based. So simultaneously, there are 2 energies functioning. There is an energy in which we call now in the world. It's very iron-aged. Why it's iron-aged is because 98% of the intentions that are coming through many of us still has the influence of the vices: anger, lust, greed, attachment, and ego. So whenever you're thinking from anger, lust, greed, attachment, and ego, then your thoughts have a lower pure force. That's why it's taking us a lot more effort to get what we want. Because in order to create or manifest anything in our lives, we need the energy of purity. And when there's the energy of purity is like fuel in a rocket. It can take you as far as you want it. So at the same time, when we're in meditation, there are shifts happening inside of us. So when we are in meditation, the soul is having a connection to the Supreme. Because the connection between I, the soul, and the Supreme is a very, very deep state of silence. It is stillness. You can go to the park, it's quiet, but you might hear some animals, the rustling of the trees. If there's a rainstorm, it's not going to feel like a nice park day. You can go to the beach, it's nice, it's fast, the air is fresh, but if there's a tsunami, it won't feel good. You can lock your door and close out the noise, but your mental vibration is still all over in your room. You've got your iPhone, your laptop, you've got your next door neighbors downside, you have the vibration of your city. You know, everything is still there, just murmuring, trying to interfere in your thinking. So in your meditation, when you detach and we decide to break away from I'm not my name, I'm not my gender, I'm not my role, my title, my religion, I'm a non-physical energy. Before I entered this body, I existed. I am Atma, I am spirit, I am soul, I am light. And when you go into that state, you're going to feel like there's a fuel, because that's when your purity and your pure vibrations begin to activate. And so when the vibrations of purity start to seep into your thoughts, it elevates you. And when you start to feel that you're getting elevated, you're able to make a connection to Baba, to the source, to God, to Allah, Jehovah, Krishna, Khuda, Bhagwan. Whatever is the language, it's the same energy. That was a big aha when I figured that out. It's like, oh my gosh, so you mean Indians don't own God? Oh, Jews don't own them? Oh, you mean the Christians don't have power over God? That just was such a big release. It was just that this energy exists for everyone. Because we all came from there, we go back there. So the more you make this connection to the source, this is what you're doing in meditation now. The more your pure sanskaras, remember what your pure sanskaras are, love, peace, purity, okay? Those are coming back to 100%. So we call that, wow, she's in her golden age. He's in her golden age. You just have to have a few thoughts and something beautiful will happen. You know, after being on the path of whatever you call yourself, spiritual or practicing spirituality, there was a time that you would think that, you know, you've made it, you're so pure-hearted, you're so good. And then a waste thought comes in and you're like, who are you fooling? And then you realize, stop trying to compete with yourself. Just appreciate that you now recognize how to take care of yourself and do it as much as you can. And however you end up, it's going to be perfect. It's just going to be perfect. So imagine that the effort that you're making now is that you're moving into a more higher vibrational personality. So there was a time after this, what we would call this hellish period is over. Please don't tell me it gets even worse, right? It's like there has to be something good after this. So I deeply feel, and I think it's important for us to be optimists, is that if I put in the right kind of a vibrational energy, then I will feel deeply I am contributing to a golden aged world. Just like if you start to recycle, how do you feel? You're contributing to a world that has, you know, a better environment or a better society. Just like if you choose to go meatless Mondays, or what if you choose to be a vegan, or what if you choose to just be completely a vegetarian? You're choosing it because you're saying, I want to save the animals. So similarly, as you keep making effort to amplify your pure sanskaras, you're choosing that I'm a part of a new world that's going to have no more suffering. And that's what makes this particular period so powerful, because now you're given a choice. What energy do you wish to feed? So since energy is cyclical, it will always start with 100%, it'll start to reduce, and for the first time algae comes in, it starts at 2%. It's just entropy, like how the seasons change, don't go blaming anyone. And as it reduces, it increases also. So what makes this period of the confluence so powerful is that we're now being offered a choice. How do you want to live your life? How do you really want to live? What do you want to do? So my experiment with you this evening, and I'm actually just going to keep sitting here, and to move our energies and to get it percolated, one of the important things is to live a meditative life. To live a meditative life. And I'd like for you, because we did this on Monday, and I want to do it again because it's really important. I would like you to experiment in how do you feel your sanskars will be after you've worked out all your algae and you're in your first birth. Hey. And you're in your first birth at the golden age. How would you talk to people? How would you relate to folks? So all I'm going to ask you to do is to contribute 5 minutes of emerging those sanskaras. And I want you to emerge how that feeling is for you when you speak to another person with only the energy of love and peace and purity and truth and joy. Would you be able to try that? And for those who did it on Monday, welcome, because you get to do it twice, right? All right. Hmm? Yeah, that was something that we did on Monday when you couldn't. So just try, just turn to the person, move your energy. If you want to get up and change your seat, get up and change your seat, but move the energy. Just feel amplified, feel alive, because whenever I feel like my energy is heavy, or I don't feel alert or bright, then you know what's going on, right? And that's where you have to begin to put the thought in. But where am I? Wait, let me shake. Where am I? I'm in a space. What's the purpose of this space? Okay, I'm going to receive that. And then what happens is that your intellect starts to make you alert again, and you become present. All right, give it a try. So speak to the person next to you as if it's your first birth and you have absolutely no more algae in you. You are only love and peace and purity and nothing else. There are no negative memories, so both of you can chit-chat for a little. Look at these two. That's exactly it, Han and Princess. That was perfect. Han, I love your t-shirt. Another 2 minutes. You can stay there, Diamond. That's how we're supposed to be, like little girls. You know what I mean? And I think it's such an important practice to get back there. Again, I'm just telling you, make yourself comfortable. All right, well, thank you so much for participating and entering into your first birth, which is a birth that has no scars, no bruises. You feel nothing is wrong with you. There's nobody to blame. You're just light. You are light. And the more you amplify your light now, then the more it will impact the light of others. You know, my latest quote has been, shine so bright that others in your company will want to shine too. Because we sometimes feel like the other people has to also meet you somewhere halfway. And it might be that no one will ever meet you halfway. And maybe you have to be the torchbearer. Then you be the torchbearer in your community, in your circle, in your family, in your home, in your workplace. Because it just might inspire people to go, you know, that diamond's got something. I don't know what it is, but there's just something. You know, I don't know, every time I see Han, I just get this feeling. So what's happening is that when people's mind starts to feel your light or your glow or your better version, that's the way they start to think about you. And they might not always express it in words, but they will think it. And whenever people think of you in a positive way, it is called a blessing. Which is why it's very important to live your life so well that people bless us more than have wishes for us that are not very healthy. Okay? So I'm going to play for you this little meditation video. And then after this video, I'm going to take you now to the next session, which is called the Tree of Life, the Tree of Religions, and how each religion is connected. Nana, could you just turn this light down for me? So. Did you like that? Wasn't that powerful? Did that feel like the end of your workday? And that you needed to have your connection to Baba now more than ever? Any comments you'd like to share about what you picked up from the video? What did you feel from the video? Yeah. Don't you know how we all feel, right?
And then when he sat down, he connected and he filled up
Right.
and got off of the train, and someone else who was sitting at the train station who was also empty didn't need to connect, but I got it from him.
Wasn't that powerful? So do you see how much of an impact we can make on each other's lives? So if we elevate our light, then others will also begin to feel ignited around us. So we did a little bit of that experimentation today. So you have an idea now of what Raj Yoga is? All right, so now I'm going to basically switch now to our course that everybody is going to receive tonight. I'd like you to think about a tree, and I'd like you to think about the seed that created a tree. And I'd like you to think about the roots connected to the seed. So just to think about it for a little, like there's a seed, there's this seed. See if I can draw a better tree. I will become a better artist one day. Okay. Okay, here's the seed. Imagine from this seed grew an enormous tree. Now, what if the seed is what we would call Baba, which means the source of all energy, the source of all pure energy? And what if the root of a tree takes all of its sustenance from the seed? So that means all the roots, basically, they're feeding from the tree. So in Raj Yoga meditation, there's a focus on those who take directly from the source is a root to humanity. And when you are taking directly from the source, then there's a deeper sense of just a responsibility, not with a burden, but there's a sense in which I'm here to help, I'm here to guide, I'm here to lead, I'm here to support a story that has more elevation in it. Because look where my sustenance is coming from, the seed. Now, because all roots, let's just say we are all roots, and let's say all of us, our relationship is with the source. So we work together so strong that it becomes a collective unit, that we are so strong, it represents like a trunk, which is called a united awareness. It's just called, a lot of people call it oneness. We like to call it just unity, love. So imagine if you and I, you're different, you're different, you're different, you're different. But we get all of our strength and our source and our power from the source, from Baba. But we don't have to be carbon copies of each other. But all of us carry this very deep experience. We are love. We are pure. We are peace. We are children of God. And if I'm supposed to be used in art, in science, in dance, in cooking, in writing, in acting, in law, then I'm bringing whatever that quality of being God's child or the love or the purity of my existence into that platform as my expression of divinity. So I don't have to leave what I'm doing, but I bring something different into it. Does that make sense? Think about it. If you're connecting from the seed and you consider yourself a root to humanity, means that you're responsible for the way you move in life, for the choices that you make that will help humanity to be stronger. Now, as the tree continues to grow, there are different branches that emerge from the tree. Now you can look at each branch as a specific religion. The first branch that started was Abraham, right? Wasn't that the first major religion? So you had Abraham. Then you had what? Hinduism. Then you had Buddhism, or Buddhism came next. Then you had Christianity. Then you had Guru Nanak. It's interesting because when you look at the tree of religions, right? Each religion at some point is birthed a few hundred years after a specific religion is on the planet. They all don't enter into the story at the same time. It's almost as if each religion sort of dovetails as a result of the history and what's taking place at the time. Like a particular religion is useful at a particular time, the message is useful, the rituals are useful, the belief systems and its virtues and its values are useful. But it really, really made me question then why after 200-300 years something new has to come on the scene. Is it not working? So one, I would say, yes, it is working. However, as the geography and population begins to expand, there are souls that are coming down with different needs or different interpretations, and so we need to communicate our love for God in a different way. Same God, same seed, but I'm going to communicate my expression of this source in a different way. Now, I might end up maybe somewhere in Tibet or near China or India, and I might not necessarily say I believe there's a God, but I believe in karma, and I might end up in the path of Buddhism. And I will have certain rules and certain ways of doing my prayers or devotion. But what I'm trying to say is every religion that we have studied or heard of, or friends that we've met from a different background, they all came from the seed. So if you find ourselves arguing with one another, oh, well, you know, all Hindus are like this. Well, you know, all Muslims are like this. Well, you know, all Rastafarians are like that. Well, you know, Christians are like this. Then you know that's ignorance. Because really, the only reason why we follow a particular religion is to basically be in alignment with a particular value or just a way in which I can understand or feel my connection to Source. If you come to me and talk to me about God in Chinese, and you're telling me that God is like this, I'm looking at you, I can't understand what you're saying. But if you're explaining to me about God and you're doing it very lovingly, I still might not get it, but I will receive your love. But what happens when we're explaining our religion to one another, we're so attached to whatever idea that religion means to me. Secondly, there is ego because of our attachment to the religion, so we're not speaking about our religion to another person with love, so we don't feel that. Third, we start to feel defensive, maybe insecure, or we start to be competitive with what our interpretation of God is to each other. So then so much time gets wasted, and you wonder, we can sometimes say, well, what is the purpose of religion? So in Raj Yoga meditation, we highly, highly value that whatever your religious beliefs are, don't stop them, but understand the deeper meaning of why they exist. Could we make sure there is a car not being towed, Princess? So I just want you to check that if all religions and all cultures, all religions and cultures are coming from the seed, do I receive a lot of power focusing on my prophet or a founder of a religion, or will most of my power come from the seed? Do I get more power going through the agent or going directly to the source? To the source. So imagine if you choose to still remain a Catholic or a Christian, but your focus is on your connection to Baba, the source. Can you imagine how you'd represent your religion? how beautifully you'd represent your faith? Wouldn't that be amazing? If you're a Muslim and you're so stuck on the Quran and what everyone is telling you and you're not having a connection to source, and you get angry with other people when you talk about the religion, Baba says, just remember me. If you want to stay being a Muslim, just stay being a Muslim, but show me through your faith. So when we're meditating and we're connecting to the seed, to the source, those qualities of God become more accentuated and more revealed. So then when people start to see these beautiful traits in your faith, they start to feel more hope. They start to feel more inspired. Now, for someone like me, who had a father who was Hindu and a mother who was Catholic, I look at religion completely different. It's like a choice, and they both survived it. And no one was worse off than the other, apart from whatever. And so I realized that it's a choice. So when I started to practice Raj Yoga, it was like, well, if I'm experiencing Baba in my yoga and meditations, then I'm okay with embracing all faiths, because we're all from the same source. And that's how I became more connected to the source, and I love and embrace everyone the same, with the same respect. So for me that works, but you have to select what's more comfortable for you. Okay? So the tree of religion basically symbolizes that all 8 billion of us, wherever we think we belong in the tree of religion, we're all getting sustenance from here. So if we can somehow turn our attention to the seed a little more, then we'll be more sustained and there'll be less quarrels and fights. Any questions? It's a simple one, wasn't it? Just imagine a seed. You know what used to fascinate me? I'll leave it. We have about 70 trees on the property where we reside now, and I would look through the window and I would see these humongous trees standing tall for, I'm sure, hundreds of years. And I would say to myself, there was just a little seed that started your growth. One little seed. And so the energy of God's seed is so palpable. It is so powerful that it has grown such an enormous civilization of children. Now, if the kids can only go back to the seed, we won't be wasting all this energy in what we're dealing with right now. We'd be a lot sweeter people and kinder. And one of the signs that, God's energy is working very much through you is your kindness can't be hidden. You'd be so kind. You'd be so compassionate. You'd be so generous. And just think about those virtues. Kindness, compassion, generosity. What would be filled in your sanskars to be that kind of person? And how would you have gotten that back? So I'll end there. So what I'd like you to do for tonight's homework assignment, today is Wednesday, right? So we have one more class left on Friday. And then you can decide if you'd like to go into deeper studies in the Raj Yoga teachings. What I'd like you to do for your homework assignment is try to plant yourself as a root next to the seed and see how your day goes tonight and tomorrow. Keep reminding, there's a beautiful song Bob Marley sings. It's called I and I Are the Roots. And the name of the song is basically reminding everyone that we are the roots. And the roots holds up the whole tree of society and humanity. So when you think of yourself as a root, the words you choose to speak are to sustain the tree of humanity, and is to help the seed to keep the tree sustained. When you select the thoughts that you're about to have, you would check into the seed to make sure it's still sustaining you, because we're holding up the whole tree. And when you make your choices, you would think, is this going to hold the tree up? What Baba has given us isn't hard. This is actually very easy to do. The only thing that is a sweet challenge is to do it all the time. So for now, if you remember my first lesson, start with 1 minute a day. Don't worry about fulfilling all of it for 24/7. But if you can do this one thing authentically and sincerely, just for 1 minute a day, you have succeeded so big that your spirit will say thank you. Your spirit will say thank you. All right? Okay, are there any questions for today?
In terms of the tree of religion, if you're part of a certain religion, how do you deal with people in your circle who may not, who may think that other people would think not like them?
Yeah.
You know, like I
Yeah.
struggle with that a little bit because I want to be inclusive with everyone.
Yeah.
If you're part of a circle, they basically say, well, if that person doesn't need this, then
Yeah.
they're like,
Yeah. There are two ways I'd like you to approach it. But the first and foremost thing I'd like you to do is to check if when you speak, you believe the words you're about to say. Like, I believe in this at this point in my life. I do believe what I'm about to say. It's a millimeter of a second. You've got to feel the confidence in that. The second thing I'd like you to do is that when you speak to those friends in your circle, you're not trying to prove them right or wrong. You're only going to speak from your experience. So here's how it might sound. I get that. I hear you. But I have to tell you, what I've been experiencing lately, it's like God's the seed of everyone. The whole of humanity is connected to the seed. And I think that we all have an opportunity to pull from the seed and to pull all the good that we can. And I'm just raising the questions because then, let's say if it's Christianity, it's when I'm with some of my friends from that tradition, I'll say, what do you think Jesus did? How did he gain those experiences? In some of his words, was he ever very critical or judgmental? Like, I would ask the question because I'm curious. So when you're coming from that place of intention, it won't touch their ego as much. It would actually maybe plant a seed. She's right, we should find out. If you find that they're very aggressive in their message and in what they believe, I wouldn't touch it, not yet. I would just be quiet and send good wishes. So you have to check, the temperature, like how they're doing. So just check their vibrations. And again, if you get like a lot of negative kickback, then you go, I was just exploring, because I think a lot about Jesus and what he must have been through. And you look at evangelicals like Joel Osteen and T.D. Jakes and who's the other one? John Gray, I think. They are speaking such a spiritual connection to God through Jesus. And it's completely different than what the Vatican does. You understand? So maybe if T.D. Jakes and the Pope were sitting in the room, they would be very open to speak to each other because they know they're on different journeys. So it's also the maturity of the individuals. And you have to give them that space and time. Yeah. Any other questions? No?
With the meditation, I know I've meditated for years. This is definitely different and more
Expansive.
That's exactly. Okay. But I've noticed that my sensitivity
Is increasing.
heightened.
Yes.
Because I tend to be a sensitive person.
Yes.
Anyway, so I found myself at the first, maybe last week, very sad
Mm-hmm.
because I could feel the energy from the souls as they wander.
Mm-hmm.
I said wander around me,
Mm-hmm.
but I was able to shift.
Good.
So is that common if I decide to do more advanced, just also to protect my own soul?
Yeah. As you develop more knowledge, you'll definitely have a shield of protection. There are some of us that you have to understand who you are. Because as you tick off all the things, all the signs, then you're more of like an empath, a very, very sensitive person. So there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes everyone else will find a problem with it because they think you're thin-skinned or you're this. But what they don't realize, you were born special with sensitive abilities so you can pick up things differently. So if there are a lot of negativities, can you imagine what they go through? And if there are a lot of positivities, can you imagine what they would go through? And so in order to protect you from that roller coaster of vibrations outside of you, having enough internal knowledge, which is why the advanced course would be very ideal for you, because it's knowledge every day for 45 minutes, which is really confirming to you, who am I, who do I belong to, where am I going, and making those choices. So I suspect that will pass for you, so not to worry. I'm sure you felt that same emotion as the environment changes when the nature changes, the weather changes, you feel very different. When the vibrations of political outcomes change, you'll feel very different. When you drive into certain neighborhoods, you're going to feel different. And everyone there's just chopping down in their potato chips and having an orange juice. And it's like, what's your problem? Because you're different. You're special about that. And sometimes people would say you're broken, there's a problem with you. And you have to look at them and go, there's nothing actually wrong with me. I can actually help people to understand more of what's going on because I can feel what you can't see. So sometimes we have those abilities. And so we have to nurture them, but we also have to protect them with more knowledge. That's why you were saying you feel so expansive, because you're listening to it and it's making sense. I'm pretty sure everyone here has felt like, wow, it really is connecting. But I still do have questions, but I'm waiting for the questions to come up because it's kind of chipping away at me inside, and I'm just waiting to see what it's doing. Have you noticed? Since you've been taking it, you're like, some of it is just like, I know there's something powerful in this. I'm just waiting to see how I can put it all together. And because this is about a spiritual internal revolution, you can't force your transformation. And if you speed up your transformation, that's the ego, so it won't last and it won't be of use to you. So the process that Brahma Baba, who really is the core behind a lot of the philosophy, the way that Brahma Baba has offered the process is take your time. You didn't become the way you were overnight, and you're not going to transform back to being as elevated as you once were overnight. So stop forcing yourself to be perfect, but pay attention to your every moment. And that's what he taught us. Just pay attention to your every moment, and you will find that your spiritual development will move very fast. Okay? Any other thoughts? This was helpful today? A little bit easier, okay. All right, guys, you were, as usual, gracious. Please be well and take care. Your homework assignment today is stay under the tree, be a root, right? So be a root, and the root is taking a lot of its sustenance from the seed. What I've learned participating in so many interfaith conferences, forums, leadership panels, is as much as all religions exist, if they're not taking from the seed, how much longer will they last? And so one of the things that we're enduring is seeing religion no longer having its potency like it did. How many of you, I know the young girls in the room might not have any idea what I'm about to say, but in our days when we used to watch black and white movies, we used to watch stories like the Nun story, or we used to watch things where there were like these puritanic nuns who would take care of orphanages and black and white, and you sat and everything seemed just so sweet and holy and down perfect. I can't tell you when's the last time I saw a nun. Last thing I heard, where was I? Where was I recently? I think I was in Florida. We were driving by, and there was a sign with a nun, and she had like blood coming out of her mouth and eyes. It was a movie. And I was like, oh no, they did not. They are not creating my memorial like that. And I was like, why would you make a movie like that now? Again, what it shows is the entropy of consciousness. So from where we used to revere that vibration, we are now in such a state of algae that we will mix something that was once beautiful and instead add our ugly to it. So she had all these ugly, like, eyes. It's like, oh my God, now everyone's going to be scared when we walk in the room. That was my thought when I saw that image. And I was just passing by, but it was so gross that I was like, why would anyone write that? And you just keep moving, because you know why. It's the entropy of energy. You better not go see that movie. You'll have nightmares for weeks. You could see it. You know, you could just see if you had to put that. You see, whatever you see and hear, it gets recorded in the sanskars. Now, you don't know where it gets stored and when it's going to be activated. So you might think, oh, it doesn't matter. You don't remember it after 6 months. But then on your 7th month, you're in this immense amount of fear, and you don't know where the vibration of fear comes from, because you don't remember 6.5 months ago you were sitting in front of a film for 2 hours scaring the living daylights out of you. So it was feeding the sanskar of fear for 2 hours. You were just like being injected. Oh my God. And your adrenaline and everything is involved, and you have no idea of the consequence it plays out later on. So be careful what you watch, because you do become what you watch. So be mindful. You can watch Black Panther, that's okay. Not even that, eh? Cartoons. Cartoons? Okay. All right then, guys. Have a lovely, lovely night. Please be safe. All the homework assignments. You are a root. Practice your connection to the seed. Experiment with your 1 minute a day. If you can expand it to 3 minutes a day, do it. Go 1 day without meat. Just 1 day without meat. 4, look at people and give them your well wishes from your mind, not from your lips. Just keep being a well wisher. Just keep wishing them well. And if you remember the Lights of the World movie, if you amplify your light enough, there just might be someone in your midst that's going to want to shine that much. Okay? All right, so stretch, be ready. Today's Wednesday, the middle of the week, almost holiday time. And Santosh, why don't we just have Santosh? Can we just play one of Bliss's? Isn't he amazing? Give him a big hand. He's been with me all morning today. He's like, oh my gosh, he was so busy. He hasn't been able to breathe all day today. Could we play one of Bliss's songs and just have Baba's image? I'll take down the sign. So what we're going to do is play a very beautiful love song, and the intention is for you to open up your heart and your feelings towards the source, towards. But as if you're just reflecting, like you're just reflecting on your life and where you are and how you are doing and what's it mean to be in a tree and how powerful of an age you're in to be in the confluence, this age of tremendous change. Whether you're doing it in one lifetime or 84, it doesn't matter. You are in a period of great change. And so the feeling is, I don't want to choose any more aged thoughts. I'm building something for a future that's golden. And that's what I'm invested in. And that's why I'm here. So start to have a dialogue with yourself in this way so that you can feel the shift taking place, okay? All right.
Takes me